Today, I'm joined by Tom Kubiniec. Tom is president and CEO of Securit Tactical and one of the leading authorities on small arms storage and armory design. He built the global leading supplier of military weapons storage from the ground up, twice earning a spot at Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies list. Tom's path is anything but traditional. He never went to college, never worked for another company, and has built three successful businesses by challenging assumptions and refusing to follow the usual playbook. His bold, unconventional approach has reshaped how the military manages weapons and inspired teams to think differently, push harder, and unlock their full potential. Outside of work, he's a former heavy metal guitarist, outdoor adventurer, and road racing champion, which is the type of energy that shows up in the way he leads. I'm excited to have him on the show to learn from his unique experience. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about you, your company, your approach, because I think it is unconventional, and I think we need a little bit of unconventional thinking these days, and so I'm excited to have you on the show. But tell us a little bit about your company. So you're known for doing things differently.
Yeah.
What were some of the early decisions or beliefs that you set up in your company that separates it from traditional other players in the industry?
Well, first off, the complete lack of corporate experience. I was always, just seat of the pants, bootstrap, just winging it. I really did. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. We all do, but you know what? We are at Securit. We have there's everybody knows, fail fast, fail fast. Just jump in. If somebody brings me a question and say, you know what? Just jump into it, get it done. If you had a problem, course correct. But early on, things that we did differently, the biggest driver for Securit success was simplicity. And when you walk into our office, the first thing you see is innovate and simplify. Anybody can solve a problem if you have no constraints on complexity. If you can build something to fix anything. It's just when you're dealing with the military, when you're dealing with these types of systems or groups, simplicity rules. I always tell people, if you've got a junk drawer in your kitchen, most people do, that catch-all drawer, typically you've got a pair of pliers, screwdrivers, some maybe zip ties, some duct tape. We all keep the simplest tools handy because they solve the most problems. And when we designed Cradle Grid technology, which originally was the Securit Tactical Weapon Storage Platform, we had won a contract with U.S. Army Special Forces Command. We were a 3-person company at that point to come in, survey all their armories, and write them a report as to why they were failing and make recommendations for improvement. And it was during that 18 months, I traveled all over the country. I was in every single armory, spent a day with each armorer. It was a big process. And we just watching everything, it became very clear that complexity was absolutely killing the armory space. And the competitors that worked in that space, everybody made a modular weapon rack. And it was a rack with a back panel that had some level you could attach components to, and they'd have different components for all the different guns. So if you walk into an armory that have a weapons density list or an MTO list, you design all the racks, put them all in, and they'd hold all the guns perfectly. And then 6 months later, they're swapping out they're getting different equipment. And then the idea with the manufacturers was, well, it's really simple. You just remove those brackets, get the brackets for the new guns, and you're good to go. The rack can do anything. But in the military, it's really hard to buy something. You just can't say, hey guys, we need to buy 35 of these brackets. They're going to cost $15 a piece. It doesn't work that way with contracting, with all the paperwork, all the stuff involved. So we looked at it, and I actually went in our shop, and worked with wood, with a welder, with a hammer, just beat the crap out of stuff to make a bracket, one piece that would hold an M4 and M16 up into sniper rifles, up into crew serve weapons, Mark 19s, 50s, into shoulder launch systems, into the smaller mortar cannons that would end up in armories. And it actually happened quicker than, I designed that. It probably spent I designed it over a week and a half, maybe 10 days. Total time was probably 10 hours, and came up with a component. So our storage platform was a modular weapon rack with one moving part, and it requires no tools. An armor walks up to my rack, he can adjust it and place the weapon in the rack and walk away, regardless of, doesn't matter what gun he has. Nobody else can do that. And we presented that. The other side of our system then is, I call it Home Depot development. We literally went to Home Depot, walked the aisles, the storage aisles, and said, how does America store stuff? We saw what we liked. So the system that we use is an open architecture. It's compatible with a wide variety of storage components you can buy at Home Depot. My competitors are all 100% proprietary, which they love that, because they say, hey, once they have our system, they got to buy everything from us. That's great, except in the military, contracting is difficult. So for me, it's once they have my system, they can go to the motor pool and steal bins. They can go, I mean, they can source anywhere in the world. They can find stuff that will work in my rack. Because for us, the guns are easy. It's all the gear. And the high volume, the volume of high value gear coming into armories is growing exponentially. And that's where, I mean, the one moving part works great. The gear integration, we just kill it. Nobody's even remotely close to what we can do.
One of the things that stands out from what you talk about that probably sets you apart from other people is you physically went out and saw the problem, right? So if you're going to, as an entrepreneur, you're solving problems, right? But you can't solve a problem from a boardroom or from, from an office someplace. You got to get in the field. You got to listen to the armorers, and you got to understand where their real challenges are, right?
You do. And there's a short story, very short, but it's a great lesson for your listeners. Securit's my third company. I had two telemarketing and the internet sales companies in the technology field. Securit was originally Secure IT. We were selling laptop cabinets to hospitals for HIPAA laws. And I got a fluke phone call from the FBI about guns. I just thought, that's so cool. 3 years later, we made Securit firearm storage. But so we become aware of the solicitation. USAFIC, U.S. Army Special Forces Command, that's now part of SOCOM. It doesn't exist. It was putting out a solicitation for this arms room assessment contract. And we became aware of it, scheduled a meeting with the colonel who was running the program. He was down in Fort Bragg with 3rd Special Forces Group. We were up against like Harris, L3, all these huge billion-dollar companies. And we're at that time secured as 3 people. And we go down for this meeting, and I'm not sure I'd ever been on a military base before. I don't have military experience. So we go through security, we get on the base, and these are new buildings, and it's a third Special Forces Group. We're walking through this building to the colonel's office, and there's all the memorabilia on the walls, all these photographs, all this like framed like vintage firearm, all this stuff. And I'm looking at all this, and I'm approaching his door. We walk in, it hits me out of the blue. I've got Gary Myrick, my head sales guy, with me. I walk up to the colonel. I just said, good morning, sir. My name's Tom Kubiniec. I'm considered the leading authority in small arms storage and armory design. And I really believe we are the company to do this for you. We sat down, had a great conversation. We left, we got in the parking lot, and Gary's like, looking at me, I go, what? He goes, leading authority? What the F? What was that? He's like, I started laughing. I said, Gary, that just hit me out of the blue. But you know what, Gary? Nobody knows how to do this. It's never been done before. We walked in and claimed to be the pros from Dover. Let's win this thing. All we got to do is back it up. And I'm going to encourage anybody in any field, from a marketing standpoint, if there is no clear leading authority in this field, claim it. You got to claim it and then publish information. You basically got to, open up the kimono and let all your secrets out and publish articles about whatever it is you do. And now once you're the leading authority, that's street cred that is unbelievable. And we still own that, as and the our military is very small for our business. Our retail is much bigger. Current administration and where the military is at in terms of facilities, armories, the money's flowing back in. So we're looking at massive growth in the military side of our company in the next 2 years. And
That's,
having that leading authority, and we are now, I mean, nobody can do what we do. We kind of own the space, and it's nice to have them just coming to us as opposed to having to constantly be canvassing and looking for leads. We're in a very good position for that.
I love that. And that's powerful advice, listeners. Hope you pick that up. That if you have the leading authority, people come to you, you're not going to them. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a very, very powerful piece of information for you who are entrepreneurs out there listening. Uh, Tom, one of the things I was thinking about is you grow, and one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs is the founder's intent, right? So when you founded the company, as you mentioned, simplify, innovate is sort of key to your culture. How do you maintain that culture as you hire more people, get larger? How do you keep that in place with new employees, and as the company grows, how do you keep that same culture in
It's,
place?
Prior to COVID, it was really easy because we all worked in one office.
Mm,
And culture, I'm a real high energy guy. I'm typically the first guy in, the last guy out. And we made some good choices. So real quick, Securit's my third business. I've had three companies that all went from 0 to 4.5, 5 million in sales in 2 years. And all of them sat at 4 million. And I realized one day, I'm the rate determining factor. I'm a $4 million a year guy, and I'm not getting past this. I said, it's me. So I actually hired a guy who had sold his company. He was a friend. He was a supplier of mine. He had sold his business. He was looking for something to do. And I hired him on a 3-year contract. His name was Frank. I said, Frank, I want to hire you for 3 years. You're going to be number 2 in the company. I need you to teach me how to be a CEO. And then I joined Vistage, which is a
yep,
peer
I know
group.
it. We've had Vistas people on. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I encourage everybody to look at this. It's the biggest impact on my life has been my experience with Vistage by far. But between Vistage and working with Frank, I really started learning how to become a CEO versus a manager. The biggest, shortest answer to that is delegate everything. Leaders don't do, they delegate. Leaders lead. It's like in the military. Generals do not dig foxholes. They just don't.
Yeah.
They have people do that, but having Frank on board, he was big on finding people, and we would find people that aligned with our culture more than skills. I don't hire for skills at all. I
Yeah, I
hire
love
for
I love
culture.
that. I think one of
And
the things you point out, I think I've heard from other entrepreneurs that if you want to grow, you have to let go. And I think part of the challenge is
absolutely.
many entrepreneurs are holding tightly to the things that they're, that made them, they make a great pizza, so they want to hold on to, the pizza making or whatever. But I think if you hire good people and you let them, bring their best to work, then you get a chance to grow. And I like what you say too there, is if you hire people for culture and teach them the skills they need, if they
Yeah,
fit within the culture
yes.
and they fit within the way you want to run the business. Yeah, that's very important.
Skills are overrated. They really
Yeah,
are. I mean, if again, in my world, if you're a surgeon, if I'm going to have shoulder surgery, skills are really important.
yeah,
But for people who are actually putting out resumes and looking at making changes, it's far more important to be a communicator, to learn how to communicate. Your resume might get you an interview. It's your ability to communicate. And if you're not rock solid on that, I would encourage you to get a coach, to work with somebody. Go to Toastmasters. Anything you can do to get better at speaking and representing yourself. Um, that's the difference. It's we don't care about resumes. In fact, we don't at Securit, we don't consider college. It's not part of. I mean, great, you went to college. I really don't care.
hmm,
We look at, who are you, or what is your experience. I would rather pull a guy who's got 4 years in the military than 4 years in a college.
yeah, yeah,
I get better results. I put it this way, I have a better track record because it's very easy to define who they are and what they've done. Whereas
yeah,
college is tough, man. It's a unless you're doing a skill that requires like medical law, one of these degrees that requires that level of education, like a business degree. I don't want to sound like a dick here, but a business degree, I don't see the value in it.
yeah, yeah,
I don't get a marketing degree. What is that?
yeah.
it's, I don't know. I don't want to sound cynical, but I do think that there's going to be a major shift in America in the next 3 to 10 years, moving away from college. I think the whole college proposition, we actually have a list of colleges that we won't hire from. We
Yeah.
just don't. And
Yeah, it's
it's
very, very much a problematic. I mean, I went to undergraduate school to become an engineer. This is very much a skill set that you need, to do
right. No, that's,
difficult
again,
things, right?
that's,
So I struggle too with some of the majors I hear about nowadays for
well,
sure as
there's
well.
the
So
other
yeah,
side of that then is if you're going to college and you don't have a lot of money, go to the cheapest school you can find.
yeah, yeah,
Get and study about it, get the damn education, but don't go in debt for a funny name on a diploma. And I see parents pushing their kids to go to these schools so the parents can brag. And the kids are graduating. The average graduate right now is $38,000 in debt.
mm,
And that's, to me, you got a 4-year school and a 10-year sentence, because 38,000 in debt is going to be $450, $500 a month for 10 years.
yeah, yeah.
That's that's a killer. That's for young people starting out. That's such a crusher.
It sure is. So let me just go back a little bit. Your background, heavy metal guitar, racing, outdoor adventure. How is that this sort of diverse background that you had, the kind of unique life experiences? How has that led you? How has that affected your leadership style and your leadership approach? You mentioned being high energy. Is that as a result of doing all these things, or just that's the
I
way
don't.
you're wired from day one?
I a lot of those things I do, like auto racing, I call it single point focus. Single point. It's this idea of, when you're running a business. I mean, I like to have a lot of balloons up in the air. I like to create a really chaotic, crazy environment for about 10 days and get a bunch of stuff done, then decompress for 3 or 4, and then do it again. And that's kind of how I don't walk in and just methodically get stuff done. I kind of blow everything up, get a boatload of stuff done, and then like for 3 or 4 days, just kind of exhale and then look at the next project and do that. For me, things like car racing, if I'm road racing, and I did that a lot in the 90s. With raising kids, I've not done that a lot lately, but you get to a point, and I'll give you an example. I drove an RX-7 out in the West Coast called Spec 7. All the cars are the same as a spec class. I won the championship 2 years in a row. I hold a lot of lap records, and I was a good driver. But there's a race in particular I remember so well. Whenever I finished a race, I would sit in the car and just mentally go through the race after it was over. Just go like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I do better? In this particular race, I won the race. I passed for first place on the very last lap. It was a tough battle. And I'm going back through this race down the main straightaway in our little RX-7. I'm probably doing about 85 to 90 miles an hour coming into the first turn. When you drive a race car, it's not white knuckles turning, hold on. It's you're driving brake point, a cone, brake point, turn point, exit point. And every turn, you've got markers, you've got a bush, you've got a tree, you've got a cone. That's my brake point. This is my turning point. So you create a map when you're practicing very quickly. And when you're racing, you're executing your map. And it's not like feel. I mean, there's feel there, but it's very much very highly structured. And I'm going back through this race, and I realized, because you move your brake points up closer and closer as you're going faster and trying to get as much speed out of the car as you can. My braking point for turn 1 was a drop of oil on the track that I isolated. I'm going to almost 90 miles an hour, and I can see a drop of oil. And I go, there's a drop, brakes, turn. You drive. I was in Albany today. I drove back from Albany to Syracuse. You're driving on the interstate. You can't see a drop of oil. You can't see it, but in that hyper state of focus, as clear as a bell, my turning points are drops of oil. It's the same like if you've ever been in a car accident, the moment, like I had a guy pull out in front of my wife and I years ago, it was a bad accident. Guy turns left in a big van right in front of us. I know we're going to hit him. It happened in probably less than a second. But in that time, you're just like, all of a sudden, everything slows down and you're going like, okay, van, the front wheel and the axle are going to be really strong. If I hit that, we're not going to move it. We're going to get crushed. I said, what's the softest part of this van I can hit? They go right behind the wheels, better. And I get the car. So we hit him at a slight angle right behind his front wheel, crushed in the door. We crushed the front of our car. But this all happened in less than a second. It wasn't until like weeks later, looking back at it, I'm just like, how was I able to do so much? And I'm thinking about my wife's next to me. I got a friend in the back. I said, I don't want her to take the brunt of all this stuff you're going through. We have so much power that we don't use because we're inundated with just fluff stuff all day long. But when you're in a hyper state of focus, you can get amazing levels of clarity. And I chase that. I chase that through the racing. I was a rock climber, through these things where you're so, I was an ice climber. When you're climbing, you get it once you get pretty high, you're in this thing where all of a sudden everything melts and your whole world is the next move. And there's no business, there's no family, there's no nothing.
Yeah.
You come away from that just with unbelievable levels of clarity or of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. The flow state, if you will. Some people talk about.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a term of it.
You get into that, that flow state. And I know as a writer, sometimes when I'm writing, we'll get into that and you're just deep into it. Oh, yeah. And my wife was like, are you ever going to get up from, I'm like, what? I've been sitting there 3 hours and didn't even know I was sitting there 3 hours. Right.
No, because time stops.
It says time stops.
And that's I tell a lot of people, like all of us, all your listeners, everybody in the world, we all have 24 hours in a day. Yeah. That is our currency. I mean, money is money. Everything you do is whatever, but we all have 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I tell a lot of people, I waited too long to figure out how to be a successful CEO. I'm 64 right now, and I really have it dialed. Things are happening. I wish I'd figured this out in my 30s because I struggled. I struggled for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's, here nor there. It's, I'm glad I got where I am.
So it's a good question, to ask you, because I feel like the same thing. Like I'm in my late 50s and I feel like I'm a better leader today than I was 30 years ago when I ran my first manufacturing business. But how do we, if you could tell your younger version of yourself what you know now, in other words, how can we help our listeners who may be younger managers who may be making a lot of mistakes? What are some wisdoms that you've learned over the years that sort of you wish you knew back then in your 30s?
It's well, time is precious. I mean, don't wait, move, don't wait. And there's several pieces. Fire fast. Fire real fast. I mean, you're never going to make a mistake firing the wrong guy. When you make a bad hire, it doesn't matter what it looks like. If you made a bad hire and you realize it in 3 days, make the damn change. I've seen so many companies. I've processed so many issues in our Vistage group with people who have employees that they got to get rid of this, and they finally do, and they're like, it's always the same thing. Why didn't I do this 5 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
So but when your gut tells you something, react to it right away, and just react to it and make a change. It's be painfully decisive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to be wrong. I mean, I tell everybody in the office, in our company, I tell everybody I hire, I need you to push back if you think I'm wrong. I said, in a vacuum, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to do it really fast. The problem is I make a lot of mistakes. So if you think the path is wrong or there's something flawed, just say stop, and I will listen. And I will change my opinion if I think you're right. And I change my opinion on things, change my view on things. I change decisions all the time based on input from others. And our whole company culture, everybody knows that anybody can just walk in my office, can call me, can just reach out. It's new people, it takes them a little while. It's just, and everybody tell them, just call Tom. But he's, no, just call Tom right now. Don't wait. That's my job. My job is to answer that phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are a remote company. So I've got 3 people in my building that used to have 27, and we had remote people for most of the company, but now the company is spread out across the East Coast, and I got a few people out West.
One of the things that I hear from you though too, as you've gotten older, you said you've hired, for example, you hired a really good person to help you become a better CEO. You got involved with Vistage. I mean, one of the things that what I'm hearing is that you've got enough humility to say I'm not perfect and I can get better, right? And so I think one of the
Absolutely.
things that younger people, sometimes younger managers, think that they have all the answers, and they try to, if you will, pretend to have all the answers, right? And they really don't. And I think humility is a big piece of it, where being willing, I even talked about it when you finish a race, you sit down, you think about how could I have done it better? Where were the mistakes? So that's a reflective personality. That's someone that's trying to get better and trying to achieve more. And I think that we don't do enough of that those silent moments to say, what could I do better? And being humble enough to seek out professional help to make you be better, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of there's no place for arrogance in business. There just isn't. I mean, there's a lot of arrogant people out there, but they struggle. The other piece, and this goes back to my music, I used to play guitar 8 hours a day. And if when I was young in high school, I was 6 hours a day. If we had to go to a family party, I'd set my alarm to get up early to get in my hours. It's very, very dedicated. And I learned very early on about muscle memory, about conscious to subconscious. You practice something for 36 days straight and it goes conscious, subconscious, and building muscle memory. When you're doing very difficult on guitar, I got tendonitis. I was transcribing Paganini's Capri's on violin to guitar, which was crazy technical, crazy fast. And I blew my arms out, but I would sit with a metronome working on stuff. And it's just painfully slow, but perfect. Anything you're doing that requires physical motion, your brain doesn't understand time. Slow everything down and do it perfectly if you're doing physical. And in 36 days of doing anything, you've mastered it. You've got the motion. Now you can move on to something else. The underlying of all that is discipline. And when you look at successful people in general, it's not about education. It's not about drive. It's discipline. It's that discipline to do what needs to be done. Every morning I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I have a cup of coffee and I just do some very, very light news read, not much. And then I do I've got a gym in my house. It's very, again, I'm not elaborate. My gym is a whole bunch of rubber bands tied to the wall. Real. I mean, it's embarrassingly stupid, but it works for me. And I do a full workout. I do some breathing exercise, some little meditation. I have a process I do to generate creativity, and being physically fit makes you more creative. Being healthy makes you more creative. And, all things being equal in business, especially with employees, is the leaders who can harness creativity will win. And it's not easy to do. It's kids, little kids are 100% creative. Kids say the darndest things. They have no filters. And they start learning filters from home. No, we don't say that. They go to school and they say something goofy. Everybody laughs. Oh, I won't do that again. They get to college. They want to fit in. This whole thing about tribalism, you want to fit in with your group. By the time they get to their first boardroom, I mean, I see a lot of there's no creativity whatsoever. It's like these people have just lost it all. So I do a lot to try to inspire and get people to be creative. Quick drill. If you're brainstorming, I'm a big believer in brainstorming, small group, 3 or 4 people. Guys, we got to solve this problem. We're going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Give me ideas. And I'm writing them all down. All right, stop. All right, set the timer for 2 minutes. I want the stupidest, craziest stuff you can come up with. And I push them. No, stupider, crazier. Come on, you guys. And I push them off a cliff of ridiculous ideas. And I stop the clock. I said, all right, guys. And there's 2 boards. Each side is their ideas and the stupidest, craziest stuff you've ever seen. I said, all right, let's connect these. What goes, and then now you find the middle where because once you get people being crazy, all I'm doing is getting them to shed their filters. And then we stop. And now they're in a completely different state. They're all laughing, whatever's going on. They're in a really goofy state. All right, guys, let's push all this stuff into the middle. Where's the solution here? It works really well, but not everybody can do it. You end up finding really good teams to brainstorm because of the people who can let go of the inhibition. Because it's at a human level, it's risky. It's risky to be ridiculous. But the greatest ideas in the world come from the very fringes of sanity. It's just and,
It's such a great line. I love that line because I just when I hear you talking, that my whole career has been around crazy ideas that we've tried and made
yeah,
work, and so I love that kind of concept because it is those crazy. I think about an idea we had in a company I ran that doubled the size of our business when we had 70% market share already. We realized the market was bigger than we were thinking, and
right.
it was just a crazy brainstorming idea that got us into a whole different market that we didn't even know existed. And it was, so I think those sessions are amazing. And again, I always think that the world's too complex for one person to solve it. We need the
Oh yeah.
creative ideas from creative people to solve some of the toughest challenges.
Yeah, I tell anybody, if it's just any young people, go back into YouTube and dig up and watch as many videos of Steve Jobs as you can, because he was so good he was a visionary of, his vision for the future was dead on. At the time, it was magical because nobody thought about this stuff. But then he hired good people and instilled in them the confidence to be ridiculous, the confidence to push envelopes, to go way beyond, way beyond what anybody else would ever do, because it was just nuts. And I still go back and watch some of his stuff. If I'm feeling like I'm trapped, or just feeling like I'm just not, things aren't there, I'll go back and watch some of his stuff. I find it really inspiring to see his creativity and his ability to communicate that.
Yeah, absolutely. What a visionary. Well, this has been fantastic, Tom. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Um, it's if you're going to work on a skill set, work on communication. It's everything else. Nothing else matters if you can't walk into a room and communicate, and walk in and have the respect of that room in a minute, in 2 minutes. We don't need to go into how to do it, but look at presence, your presence, and how do you walk into a room? How do you talk to people? I encourage everybody, if you're at all nervous, join Toastmasters. It absolutely works. It's easy. It's fun. I've done Toastmasters. I don't do it now. I did it for many years because I really liked constantly being in that environment, and made me a much better speaker.
I love it. Such powerful advice. I love that. Listeners, hopefully you pick that up. Communication. Such an important part of leadership. Command the room. If you don't know how to do it, find a way to do it. Toastmasters is a great place to go to do that. So, Tom, how can our listeners find out more about you and your company?
You Google my name, Google Tom Kubiniec. I'm all over the web. Securit, again, just Google Securit, or search an AI bot. And we're all over the place. It's pretty easy to find. I try to write articles and publish. I haven't been lately. I'm trying to get back into it and do just kind of giving back. You build up all this knowledge. I'm just kind of data dumping it at some point.
Well, fantastic. And we're going to put links in the show notes for all of Tom's resources. And again, if something in this conversation is kind of interesting to you, sort of reach out to Tom. We're going to have his links out here. Take a look at his company, see what he's doing. There's a lot of ways that we can learn to get our businesses or our organizations better by looking at other successful leaders, successful entrepreneurs. Tom's doing a great job. So I highly encourage you to take a look at what he's doing and see if you can get better as a result of seeing another leader in what they do. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your journey. And you've helped us to become better leaders just by listening to your story. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Well, that is it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.